Hey, Soul Stories fam. Today's love story will make you blush, sigh, and maybe throw a pillow. Rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell like it owes you money. Under the radiant summer sunshine, the coastal city of Newport, Rhode Island, shimmered with elegance. The garden of the Ocean Breeze Hotel, where the wedding was to take place, overflowed with white roses and pale blue hydrangeas, their petals swaying in the ocean breeze. White silk-covered chairs were neatly arranged, all facing a floral arch where Caitlin Ramsey would soon walk down the aisle to become Damien Holt's bride. The air buzzed with excitement, the laughter and chatter of guests blending with the distant sound of crashing waves, a perfect scene for a perfect day. But behind the beauty, an emotional storm was quietly brewing. Caitlin Ramsey, a 26-year-old woman, stood in front of a mirror in the bridal suite, her hands gently smoothing the soft white silk of her wedding dress. Her glossy brown hair was styled in a high bun, adorned with small pearls that highlighted her resolute green eyes. As the daughter of a middle-class family, Caitlin had worked tirelessly to earn her tourism degree from Boston University, fueled by dreams of building a career in luxury travel. She wasn't an heiress or a darling of high society, but her intelligence, determination, and passion had brought her to Damien Holt, the man she believed would share her future. Damien, 28, was the only son of the Holt family, an empire built on seaports and real estate. With a charming smile, deep blue eyes, and natural confidence, he had captivated Caitlin from the moment they met at a travel conference in New York. Their love had blossomed quickly, burning with intensity, and although Caitlin had always sensed a quiet disapproval from his family, she believed their love was strong enough to overcome any barrier. Today, she thought, would be the day they truly belonged to each other. But as the clock struck 10 a.m., the air in the bridal suite began to feel stifling. Caitlin's best friend, Dina, a lively blonde with an ever-optimistic spirit, tried to lighten the mood with jokes, though her worried eyes betrayed her true feelings. "Kate, you look like a princess. Damien's going to faint when he sees you," Dina said, but her voice trembled slightly as she glanced at the clock. Caitlin forced a smile, a creeping sense of dread tightening in her chest. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Eleanor Holt, Damien's mother, entered. Tall and slender, her silver hair tightly pinned back, and her piercing eyes radiating power, she exuded an air of icy authority. Dressed in an expensive, deep blue silk dress, she looked as cold as her reputation. Without a word of greeting, she strode straight to Caitlin, lips pressed into a tight line. Dina opened her mouth to speak, but one sharp glance from Eleanor silenced her. "Caitlin Ramsey," Eleanor began, her voice sharp as a blade, "you're a clever girl, but you don't belong in our world. Damien needs a wife worthy of his position, not a girl from a modest background with foolish dreams of tourism." She pulled a check from her handbag and slid it toward Caitlin. $5 million. Enough for you to start a new life anywhere, as long as it's without Damien. Caitlin felt the blood rush to her face, her heart constricting painfully. She stared at the check, then met Eleanor's gaze, her voice trembling but firm. "You think I love Damien for his money? You're wrong. I love him for who he is, not what he owns." She pushed the check back, her hands clenched tightly to suppress her anger. "I don't need your money, and I won't leave Damien." Eleanor gave a cold, faint smile. "You'll regret this, girl. Damien isn't coming." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving Caitlin standing there, her heart beginning to crack. As time passed and the ceremony space remained empty, the truth grew undeniable. Damien wasn't coming. Guests began whispering, their pitying eyes turning toward Caitlin, who still stood in her pure white gown like a forgotten statue. Dina hugged her, whispering words of comfort. But all Caitlin felt was a chilling emptiness in her chest. The weight of betrayal was crushing, but deep within her, a spark of resilience began to ignite. Back in the dressing room, Caitlin took off her wedding dress, each movement tearing at the dream she had once held dear. She picked up her phone and called Dina, her voice eerily calm. "Dina, I need to get out of here. I can't stay in this place another second." Dina came at once, helping her pack in silence. As they left the hotel, Caitlin felt a strange sensation pain. Yes, but also liberation. She placed a hand on her stomach, where a tiny life was growing a secret not even Damien knew. "I won't beg him," she whispered to herself. "I'll build a new life for me and my child." As Dina's car drove along the coastal road, leaving behind the shattered scene of a wedding that never happened, Caitlin looked out the window, silent tears falling. But in her eyes was more than sorrow, there was fierce determination. She swore she would not let this betrayal define her. This was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey of self-discovery where she would prove she was strong enough to rise from the ashes. Dorchester, Massachusetts, in the heart of a bitter winter, was a stark contrast of bustling streets and icy white snow blanketing everything in sight. The red brick buildings stood tall against the biting winds that carried the frozen breath of Boston Harbor. Caitlin Ramsey, now 26, stepped off an old bus, carrying a faded suitcase and a heavy heart. She had chosen Dorchester as the place to start over, far enough to blur the memories of a broken wedding, yet close enough to feel the pulse of a big city where she hoped to find new opportunities. Her belly had begun to show, the clear sign of her 4th month of pregnancy, but she hid it beneath a thick coat as if to conceal both her pain and her hope. Life in Dorchester was far from easy. Caitlin rented a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an aging building where the stairs creaked and the heater worked only half the time. To cover expenses, she took a job as a waitress at Maggie's Diner, a small restaurant on the corner of Blue Hill Avenue. Her shifts stretched from early morning until late at night, leaving her feet sore and her back aching under the growing weight of her pregnancy. The customers, truck drivers, office workers, locals left small tips, but Caitlin always smiled, not for them, but because she knew she had no other choice. Every dollar earned was a building block for the future of the children growing inside her. One snowy night, Caitlin gave birth to Zara and Kai at the local hospital. Zara, with rosy cheeks and curious eyes, arrived first, followed by Kai, a quiet boy with a smile that melted Caitlin's heart. The joy of motherhood was quickly dimmed by the harshness of reality. With barely any savings and no family or friends nearby, Caitlin faced sleepless nights, soothing her newborns while silently worrying about utility bills. She sewed curtains out of old fabric to block the streetlights, transforming the small apartment into a humble but love-filled home. Every night she sang lullabies to Zara and Kai, songs her own mother had once sung to her, and whispered, "Mommy will give you a better life, I promise." Caitlin's resilience was forged in the crucible of hardship. She learned to stretch every cent, bought secondhand clothes for her children, and used rare breaks to read books about tourism and business management. Her dream of a career in luxury travel still burned inside her, no matter how distant it seemed. That dream took a step closer one crisp autumn afternoon, when Caitlin, back at work after maternity leave, noticed a job posting on the diner's bulletin board. Santos Travel, a small tour company, was hiring an administrative assistant. With a fragile thread of hope, Caitlin applied her resume thin, but her determination strong. The interview at Santos Travel was unlike any she had expected. James Santos, the company's founder, was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. Instead of focusing on the gaps in her employment history, he listened as Caitlin spoke passionately about her love for travel, her ideas for immersive cultural experiences, and her drive to create meaningful journeys. When she confessed she was a single mother of twins, James didn't blink. He simply smiled and said, "I see a fire in you. We need someone like that." She was hired starting in a basic administrative role, but it was a doorway into a new world. The following months, Caitlin worked relentlessly. She arrived early, stayed late, and seized every opportunity to learn. She scheduled tours, handled customer complaints, and pitched ideas to improve operations. James quickly recognized her potential and entrusted her with more complex tasks, from coordinating with international partners to designing new travel packages. At home, Caitlin devoted every free moment to Zara and Kai, playing with them, reading books, and teaching them their first lessons about kindness and perseverance. In the living room, she hung a small board with the words, "We can do this." The love Caitlin had for her children was the fire that kept her warm through the icy New England winter. Every time she looked into Zara and Kai's green eyes, Eyes that startled her with how much they resembled their father's. She reminded herself that she wasn't just living for herself anymore. She was living for her two little angels. Though the past sometimes resurfaced, bringing with it the sting of betrayal, Caitlin refused to let it pull her down. She began to dream of a bigger future, one where she was not only a single mother, but also a woman capable of transforming the travel industry. Dorchester, with its brutal cold and snow-covered streets, wasn't just the place she had run to. It had become the soil where she planted the first seeds of her ambition. Dorchester, with its snow-covered streets now familiar, had slowly become a second home to Caitlin Ramsey. Her small apartment, though modest, echoed with the laughter of Zara and Kai, two children growing up with boundless energy and curiosity. The frigid winter days no longer felt like an enemy, but rather the backdrop to Caitlin's journey of rising. In the small office of Santos Travel, sunlight streamed through the window onto her desk, piled with papers, each one a step toward rebuilding her dream. Life, though still difficult, had begun to settle into something steady, and in that steadiness, Caitlin found space to nurture her ambition. At Santos Travel, Caitlin quickly proved herself to be indispensable. With sharp communication skills, she handled calls from difficult clients with calm precision, turning complaints into opportunities for service improvement. She organized tours with meticulous attention to detail, from selecting local restaurants to give travelers a taste of authentic cuisine, to coordinating with guides to ensure each trip felt unique. When one group had their flight canceled, Caitlin swiftly arranged alternate tickets and even set up a surprise tour of a local museum. James Santos, her manager, was not only impressed, he began to see in Caitlin something greater, someone who could help reshape an entire industry. James, a seasoned veteran in the tourism world, realized Caitlin wasn't working just for a paycheck. She had a fire in her, a desire to craft travel experiences that were not just luxurious, but deeply meaningful, connecting guests with local people and culture. One afternoon after the office had emptied, James called Caitlin into the meeting room. "You have a rare talent," he told her sincerely. "I want you to take over as operations lead. You'll oversee everything from tour planning to managing the team." Caitlin was stunned, honored, and overwhelmed all at once. She accepted the offer, but inside she knew this was just the beginning. Outside of work, Caitlin never stopped pushing herself. She enrolled in online courses in business management and tourism marketing, often staying up late to finish assignments after Zara and Kai had fallen asleep. In the quiet glow of her desk lamp, she sat in front of her laptop, studying global travel trends and sketching out a new tourism model, one that didn't just focus on luxury, but offered rich cultural immersion, like pottery making with local artisans or joining traditional festivals. The concept was still rough, but it set her heart racing. She carefully recorded her thoughts in a notebook, each page a puzzle piece in her larger dream. In her role as a mother, Caitlin poured her love into Zara and Kai, who were now nearly 3 years old. She taught them their first lessons about the world, from identifying colors through the paintings they created together, to telling stories about far-off places she dreamed of one day showing them. Though money was still tight, she sometimes had to choose between buying milk or paying the electric bill. Caitlin never let her children feel the scarcity. She created tiny adventures within their apartment, turning the couch into a ship and the tablecloth into a sail, making Zara and Kai giggle with joy, their green eyes sparkling. One evening while Caitlin was reading to the twins, her phone rang. It was James. What he said next took her by surprise. "Caitlin, you're capable of more than running things for me. I want to invest in you so you can start your own company. Your ideas about cultural travel, they could change the way people see the world." Caitlin sat frozen, her hand gripping the phone. The thought of starting her own business was something she had once dreamed of, but it was terrifying. She was a single mother, with 2 children depending on her. If she failed, everything could collapse. But as she looked over at Zara and Kai curled up together, fast asleep on their little bed, she felt a strength that outweighed the fear. "I'll think about it, James," she said, her voice steady. In the days that followed, Caitlin wrestled with the decision. She made lists of risks and opportunities, weighing every detail. Dina, her best friend from afar, called to encourage her. "Kate, you've already made it through so much. You're strong enough to do this." Finally, in a quiet moment, as snow drifted outside the window and streetlights cast a golden glow across the apartment, Caitlin made her choice. She would take the leap not just to prove something to herself, but to build a better future for Zara and Kai. She pulled out her notebook and wrote the first line, Ramsey Exclusive Experiences. It was the seed of hope she planted, in a city frozen with winter, but one that could never extinguish the fire burning in her heart. In the heart of Boston, a city where towering skyscrapers stood alongside cobblestone streets, sat the office of Ramsey Exclusive Experiences, perched on the 15th floor of a sleek modern building with panoramic windows overlooking the glittering Charles River. The office, minimalist yet refined, featured walnut desks, leather chairs, and framed prints of iconic cultural destinations adorning the walls. This was where Caitlin Ramsey, now 30, ran the young travel empire she had built from the ground up. Just a few years ago, she had been a single mother waiting tables in a Dorchester diner. Now she was the founder of a brand redefining the way the elite experience the world. Ramsey Exclusive Experiences wasn't just a company, it was a testament to her resilience and vision. Starting the company had been a bold move, but Caitlin had turned her dream into reality with the backing of James Santos, not only a financial investor, but a trusted mentor. Ramsey Exclusive Experiences launched with a mission to deliver luxury travel experiences that went beyond opulence, immersing clients in authentic local culture. The company's tours weren't just vacations, they were meticulously curated journeys. From cooking with celebrity chefs in Tuscany to releasing lanterns during traditional festivals in Chiang Mai, each experience was designed to be unforgettable. Her clientele, ranging from CEOs and film stars to affluent families, were drawn to the authenticity and originality that her brand offered. In the early days, Caitlin worked tirelessly. She personally crafted the company's business strategy, designed the logo, a stylized globe interwoven with traditional patterns, and recruited her first team members. She handpicked passionate individuals, from seasoned travel experts to young guides full of energy. The small office in Dorchester quickly became cramped, prompting Caitlin to relocate headquarters to Boston, where she could be closer to international partners and potential high-end clients. Success came faster than she expected. A glowing feature in travel and leisure hailed Ramsey Exclusive Experiences as a fresh breeze in luxury tourism, and soon partnerships with five-star hotels, luxury airlines, and cultural institutions began to pour in. Despite her growing responsibilities, Caitlin never let her role as a mother fade into the background. She moved Zara and Kai, now 5 years old, into a cozy apartment in Boston's Back Bay. The space wasn't large, but it was filled with love. Shelves stacked with children's books, a tiny art nook for Zara, and a model train set for Kai. Each evening, no matter how exhausting her meetings had been, Caitlin always made time for her children, reading stories, playing games, or baking cookies in their small kitchen. She taught them about resilience and told them edited stories of her own journey. Nothing is impossible if you believe in yourself, she would say, as Zara drew pictures of grand ships and Kai dreamt of piloting airplanes. Caitlin also nurtured her children's natural growth. Zara, with her vivid imagination, began writing short adventure stories, while Kai, quieter by nature, preferred puzzles and building intricate Lego models. Caitlin noticed how both of them had the same striking green eyes, a sharp reminder of Damien Holt, the father they never knew. But she gently pushed those memories aside, focusing instead on creating an environment where her kids could explore and flourish. She enrolled them in art and science classes at the local community center, even if it meant cutting back on personal spending. "You two are the reason I do all of this," she often reminded herself. Caitlin's leadership style became the cornerstone of her company's culture. She wasn't just a CEO with strategic vision, she was an inspiring presence. In meetings, she listened to every voice, from interns to seasoned professionals. When a major partner in Japan pulled out of a contract at the last minute, Caitlin didn't panic. Instead, she flew to Tokyo, met the partner face-to-face, and pitched a new plan. An immersive tour of Kyoto's traditional villages, including an exclusive tea ceremony experience. That tour became one of the company's flagship offerings, praised by international travel publications. Ramsey Exclusive Experiences soon expanded beyond the U.S. Caitlin opened branch offices in London, Paris, and Singapore. She hired local experts to ensure each tour reflected the true essence of its destination. A Bali office catered to cultural tours of Indonesia, while the Cape Town branch specialized in safaris combined with South African history. Though her schedule was packed, Caitlin ensured that every decision aligned with the company's core values: authenticity, uniqueness, and meaning. She often reminded her team, "We don't sell trips, we sell stories people will tell for the rest of their lives." Despite her global success, Caitlin never forgot her roots in Dorchester. She established a small scholarship fund at the local community center to support single mothers seeking vocational training or continuing education. James Santos, now a close friend, often dropped by the office and joked, "You've gone far beyond what I ever imagined for you." But Caitlin knew her success wasn't just talent or luck. It had been forged in late nights, quiet tears, and unconditional love for Zara and Kai. One evening, after a long day, Caitlin came home to find Zara and Kai sitting on the floor, drawing a large picture of a cruise ship. "Mom, this is your ship," Zara exclaimed, pointing to a blue vessel with colorful sails. Kai, with his usual seriousness, added, "I want to ride Mom's ship when I grow up." Caitlin smiled, pulling them into her arms, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She gazed out the window at the city lights and thought about her journey. From an abandoned bride, she had built an empire not just to prove her worth, but to create a better world for her children. Yet deep down, Caitlin knew her journey wasn't over. A greater ambition stirred within her, a vision to take Ramsay exclusive experiences even further. Not just as a company, but as a symbol of innovation in the travel industry. She opened her old notebook, now filled with scribbled ideas. A UNESCO heritage tour, a program connecting local artisans with travelers, and a luxury yacht project called the Infinity. As she wrote the last notes of the day, her eyes gleamed with determination. This wasn't just a story of success. It was a story of empowerment, of turning impossible dreams into reality for herself, for her children, and for the world. Miami, with its golden sunshine and salty sea breeze, was the perfect setting for the launch of the Infinity, the crown jewel of Ramsay exclusive experiences. The ship, over 200 meters long, shimmered under the sun with its blend of modern elegance and classic charm. Polished teak decks, glass-paneled railings, and luxury suites designed like artistic masterpieces. This was Caitlin Ramsay's passion project, now 32 years old. She stood at the pinnacle of her journey to build a travel empire. The launch event drew the elite, investors, media stars, and powerful figures in the travel industry. The air buzzed with soft jazz, the clinking of wine glasses and glowing praise for Caitlin's vision. But amid the grandeur, fate was quietly preparing an unexpected encounter. Dressed in a refined aquamarine silk gown, Caitlin moved gracefully among clusters of guests, her practiced smile concealing exhaustion. She had spent months preparing for this event, overseeing the ship's interior design, coordinating with international media, and fine-tuning every detail from a globally inspired menu to immersive cultural performances. But the late nights and relentless pressure had taken a toll. As the party reached its peak, Caitlin felt lightheaded. She excused herself from the main deck, searching for a quiet corner to rest. Disoriented, she stumbled into a VIP suite on the upper level, softly lit, with a plush bed that beckoned. Without thinking, she collapsed onto it, drifting into sleep within seconds. When Caitlin opened her eyes, sunlight poured through the large window, making her squint. She sat up, still groggy, and quickly realized she wasn't in her private office as she had intended. The room with dark wood finishes and abstract artwork was clearly a VIP cabin reserved for important guests. Before she could collect her thoughts, the door opened, and a tall figure stepped in. Caitlin's heart stopped when she saw the man in the doorway, Damien Holt. He looked almost exactly as she remembered: dark brown hair, piercing green eyes, and the quiet confidence of a powerful man. But now he was a renowned port investor, frequently featured in business magazines. And he was also the man who had left her at the altar 7 years ago. Caitlin? Damien's voice was a mix of shock and confusion. He froze, a glass of wine in one hand, his gray suit slightly unbuttoned. "What are you doing here?" Caitlin felt her face flush, the sting of old wounds rushing back. She stood quickly, smoothing her dress. Her voice was ice. "Wrong room. I'll leave." But Damien's gaze, full of unspoken questions, stopped her in her tracks. "Wait," he said, stepping closer. "You're behind this ship? Ramsey Exclusive Experiences? That's your company?" Caitlin met his eyes, sharp and guarded. "Yes, I didn't know you'd be a guest. If I had, I wouldn't have let you on board." Her words cut like a blade, but inside her heart trembled. For 7 years, she had rebuilt her life, becoming a powerful CEO and a devoted mother. Yet here he was, reopening a wound she had tried so hard to close. She remembered the day he never showed up, the lonely nights of pregnancy, and the birth of Zara and Kai children he knew nothing about. Sensing the tension, Damien tried to soften the moment. "Caitlin, I didn't know you'd done all this. I want to talk about what happened back then." But Caitlin cut him off, her voice steady and cold. "There's nothing to talk about, Damien. The past is dead. I have work to do." She turned toward the door, but his eyes full of regret and something deeper made her hesitate. A current of something powerful passed between them, like fate pulling them back together when all she wanted was to run away. She returned to the party, forcing composure. But Damien's sudden appearance had shaken her. She couldn't focus her eyes, kept searching for him in the crowd. He was speaking with a group of investors, flashing a polite smile, but his eyes occasionally flicked toward her. Caitlin reminded herself she was no longer the fragile girl he had once abandoned. She was Caitlin Ramsey, the woman who had built an empire from nothing, the mother of Zara and Kai, who were waiting for her back home. But the truth remained. The man standing just meters away was their father, and that fact could no longer be ignored. The night reached its climax when a staff member informed her that her children had arrived with Dina, her best friend, to witness the final part of the event. Caitlin had promised them they could see Mommy's big ship. As she stepped out onto the deck to welcome them, her heart skipped a beat once more. Damien, seemingly out of nowhere, was also nearby, chatting with a business partner. Zara and Kai came running, their laughter like bells in the air. Caitlin knelt to hug them, her smile soft. But when she looked up, she met Damien's gaze and watched as his expression froze. He stared at Zara and Kai, his eyes wide. The striking green eyes of the twins, identical to his own, told him everything without a word. "Caitlin," he whispered, voice trembling. "Are they—" Caitlin gripped her children's hands tightly. Her voice was calm but firm. "Don't, Damien, not now." She turned and walked away with the twins, her heart pounding. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just a coincidence. This was fate opening a door to secrets she had buried for 7 years. When she glanced back, Damien was still watching them, stunned and filled with something she didn't want to name. Deep, undeniable regret. The party went on, but for Caitlin, everything had shifted. She moved through the rest of the evening with a polished exterior, but her mind was a storm. Damien Holt, the man who had once shattered her, was now here, completely unaware of the children he had fathered or of the battles she had fought alone. She wondered, did he deserve to know the truth, or should the past remain buried forever? As the moonlight bathed the infinity, Caitlin felt the winds of change rising, a storm of secrets, emotions, and choices that could no longer be avoided. The launch of the Infinity continued in luxurious splendor. Wine glasses sparkled under golden lights. Laughter echoed across the deck, and the elite reveled in the celebration. But for Caitlin Ramsey, everything felt like it was happening through a thick fog. Her unexpected encounter with Damien Holt in the VIP cabin, and the moment he laid eyes on Zara and Kai, had shaken the carefully crafted world she'd spent the last 7 years building. Though she resumed her role as host, smiling with poise and grace, her mind was flooded with the haunting green eyes of Damien, the same shade reflected in the faces of her children. The truth about Zara and Kai had been inadvertently exposed, and now she had no choice but to face the consequences. As the evening wound down, Caitlin led her children to a quiet corner of the deck, hoping to keep them out of Damien's line of sight and away from the growing curiosity of guests. Zara, with her high ponytail, chattered excitedly about the ship's enormous sails, while Kai, ever quieter, clung to his mother's hand, eyes wide as he took in the surroundings. Caitlin tried to focus on them, but she could feel Damien's presence like a shadow. He stood near the bar, still mingling, but his eyes repeatedly drifted to her and the children, full of confusion, longing, and something she wasn't ready to name. Suddenly, Damien broke from the group and walked toward them. Caitlin instinctively tightened her grip on Zara and Kai, her protective instincts kicking in. "Caitlin, we need to talk," he said, voice low but resolute. "Just 5 minutes." She wanted to say no, to walk away immediately, but the look in Damien's eyes, filled with regret and quiet determination, made her hesitate. She turned to Dina, standing nearby, and whispered, "Can you watch them for a minute?" Dina nodded, gently guiding Zara and Kai toward the ship's kids' corner, where toy trains and mini-ship models awaited. In a small conference room aboard the Infinity, its window framing the black, endless ocean, Caitlin faced Damien. The space was quiet, save for the soft sound of waves brushing the hull. She stood with arms crossed, on expression cold. "What do you want, Damien? Don't tell me it's just to talk." Damien inhaled deeply, his fists clenched as though steadying his emotions. "Caitlin, I didn't know. I swear. If I had known you were pregnant, He faltered, lost for words. "I made a mistake, letting my mother push me away from you. But I need to know about them. Zara and Kai, they're mine, aren't they?" Anger surged within Caitlin, but she held it in, her voice sharp and even. "Yes, they're your children, but you don't get to call them yours just because you happen to see them today. 7 years, Damien. I raised them alone while you lived your life without looking back." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "You think one chance meeting changes that? I don't need you, and neither do they." Damien stepped back, visibly shaken. "I know I don't deserve it, but when I saw them, those eyes, I can't pretend they don't exist. I want to do the right thing. I want to be part of their lives." His voice was sincere, but all Caitlin could hear was doubt. She remembered all his old promises that shattered when he walked away. "The right thing?" she echoed bitterly. "The only right thing you can do is stay away. I won't let you hurt them." Their tense exchange was interrupted by a knock. A staff member informed Caitlin that several reporters were requesting interviews. She nodded curtly, signaling that the conversation was over. As she stepped out, her phone buzzed with a message from her PR team. A social media post was going viral, teasing headlines like, "Family secret revealed at multi-million-dollar cruise launch." No names, no specifics, just whispers of an old flame and mysterious children. Still, Caitlin felt her blood run cold. The reputation she had built through blood, sweat, and sacrifice was now under threat from gossip she couldn't control. She immediately gathered her media team in a private corner of the ship. "I want every post referencing this taken down immediately," she ordered, her voice firm, though her eyes betrayed her anxiety. Lisa, her young but savvy communications lead, nodded but warned. "We can contain some of it, but the rumors are spreading. We need an official statement to steer the narrative." Caitlin pressed her lips together. Any statement risked revealing more about Zara and Kai, something she wasn't willing to do. Not yet. Meanwhile, Damien remained on the deck, eyes fixed on the children. He watched as Zara giggled while building a toy ship, and Kai, serious as ever, drew a picture of the sea. A quiet ache settled deep in his chest. He had no right, he knew that. But their emerald eyes, so like his own, made denial impossible. He wondered about the lost years, about everything Caitlin must have endured raising them without him. After managing the press crisis, Caitlin returned to her children. She knelt beside them, hugging them tightly, seeking comfort in their small arms. "Mommy, that man keeps looking at me," Kai whispered, eyes drifting toward Damien. Caitlin forced a smile, brushing a hand through her son's hair. "He's just curious about the ship, sweetheart." But inside, she knew the truth was growing heavier by the day. Damien had seen the children, and even if she wanted to shield Zara and Kai from him forever, she couldn't stop the questions that would inevitably come. As the Infinity returned to port, Caitlin held her children's hands tightly as they disembarked. Her gaze was steady, but her heart was in turmoil. The press, Damien's reappearance, and the weight of protecting her children's world, all of it pressed down like a storm cloud. But when Zara slipped her small hand into hers and Kai leaned against her shoulder, Caitlin found clarity. She would do anything to keep them safe. The truth about Damien might one day have to come out, but she would be the one to decide how and when. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Boston, with its cobblestone streets and red brick buildings nestled among gleaming modern towers, became the place where Caitlin Ramsey sought balance after the emotional storm aboard the Infinity. Her cozy apartment in Back Bay, where she lived with Zara and Kai, was now her fortress, a sanctuary where she tried to shield her children from the disruption Damien Holt's unexpected reappearance had brought. Yet the truth about Zara and Kai's father, no matter how much she wanted to bury it, had begun to seep through the cracks like water through stone. Outside, the media buzzed with rumors of family drama at the lavish cruise launch, threatening the reputation of Ramsey-exclusive experiences. Inside, Caitlin faced a far deeper question. Could she continue to keep the wall between her children and Damien intact, or would the truth ultimately force her to open a door she had long kept shut? In the days following the event, Caitlin threw herself into crisis control. She instructed her team to release a concise statement highlighting the Infinity's success and dismissing the swirling rumors as baseless speculation. But the pressure wasn't just external. Zara and Kai, with the intuitive sensitivity of 5-year-olds, began asking questions. One evening, while the three of them were sitting on the living room floor working on Kai's favorite puzzle, Zara looked up, her emerald eyes filled with curiosity. "Mommy, who was that man on the ship? Why did he look at me and Kai like that?" Even Kai, usually quiet, nodded solemnly, waiting for her answer. Caitlin felt her heart tighten. She had anticipated this moment, but not so soon. She took a deep breath and pulled them both into her arms, her voice soft but steady. "Zara, Kai, I want to tell you a story. That man, he's your father. But he and I separated a long time ago, before you were born. I chose to stay and raise you, because you are everything to me." She paused, carefully choosing words they could understand. "I didn't know he would be on the ship, but I promise you this, no matter what happens, I will always protect you." Zara frowned slightly, processing the revelation, while Kai clutched her hand and whispered, "You're enough, Mommy." His innocent words made her smile and ache. She had done her best to make sure they never felt lacking, but she could no longer deny that Damien was a part of them. Meanwhile, in his glass office tower in Miami, Damien couldn't shake the image of Zara and Kai. Their green eyes, his eyes haunted him. He knew he didn't deserve forgiveness, but the guilt of lost years and the desire to know his children gnawed at him. He reached out to Caitlin through a brief email. "I don't want to disrupt your life or theirs. I just want a chance to make things right. Please let me try." Caitlin stared at the message, gripping her phone. She wanted to delete it, to pretend Damien was still gone. But when she thought of her children's eyes, she hesitated. They deserved the truth, even if only a part of it. But she would never allow him to hurt them. After days of internal struggle, Caitlin agreed to let Damien meet Zara and Kai under strict conditions. She chose a small park near their apartment for the meeting, a neutral space with swings and soft green lawns. "This is not forgiveness," she told Damien over the phone, her tone cold. "This is for them. You'll see them under my supervision. If you upset them in any way, you'll never see them again." Damien agreed, his voice tight with both gratitude and nerves. Their first meeting took place on a crisp autumn morning, golden leaves carpeting the pass. Holding Caitlin's hand, Zara and Kai eyed the man on the bench curiously. Damien, in a navy sweater, forced a calm smile, though his eyes revealed his anxiety. "Hi, Zara." "Hi, Kai," he said gently. "I'm a friend of your mom's. Would you like to play with me for a little while?" Zara, ever open-hearted, nodded and tugged Kai toward the swings, inviting Damien to push them. Caitlin stayed close, watching every movement with quiet caution, ready to step in if needed. The visit went better than she expected. Damien listened patiently as Zara told him about her school art project, pushed her on the swing with care, and crouched down beside Kai to help him stack stones. Slowly, even Kai began to open up. Caitlin saw sincerity in Damien's actions, but she couldn't forget the pain he had caused. As the meeting ended, Damien turned to her, eyes full of hope. "Thank you, Caitlin. I know I don't deserve this, but I'll do everything I can to make up for the past. She gave a quiet nod and led her children home, her heart tangled in a web of guarded trust and lingering doubt. A few days later, Caitlin received a letter from a law firm. Damien had created a trust fund for Zara and Kai, a sizable amount, designed so the children could access it as adults, promoting independence and responsibility. Attached was a handwritten note. "This isn't a bribe. I just want them to have the opportunities I failed to give them before." Caitlin read it slowly, feeling the truth in every word. Still, she scrutinized the legal terms to ensure there were no strings attached. There weren't. And though she remained cautious, she was forced to see Damien in a new light. He wasn't just speaking, he was acting. Media pressure hadn't entirely subsided. A few outlets continued to speculate about Caitlin and Damien's relationship, but her communications team had successfully shifted public focus back to the Infinity's triumph. Caitlin knew she couldn't control every rumor, but she could control how she responded. And now she was beginning to consider giving Damien a small chance, not because she had forgiven him, but because she wanted Zara and Kai to know their father, on her terms. That night, as she tucked them into bed, Zara asked, "Mommy, will that man come back and play with us again?" Caitlin smiled gently, brushing her daughter's hair. "Maybe, if he keeps his promise." Inside, she knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Forgiveness was a long and uneven road, lined with old wounds and new chances. But for her children, she was willing to walk it one careful step at a time. Boston, with its tree-lined streets and gentle autumn air, became the backdrop for the tentative beginnings of a new chapter 1 that linked Caitlin Ramsey, Damien Holt, and their children, Zara and Kai. After the tense encounter aboard the Infinity and their first supervised meetings in the park, Caitlin reluctantly agreed to let Damien become a part of the twins' lives under strict boundaries. Their regular meetings, held at child-friendly locations from the park near her Back Bay apartment to Kai's favorite science museum, began to bring a quiet rhythm to their lives. At Ramsey Exclusive Experiences, Caitlin remained a commanding CEO. But outside the office, she faced the complex reality of watching Damien slowly weave his way into the world of her children. The initial meetings were awkward. Despite his confidence as a successful investor, Damien often stumbled in conversation with the twins. He brought small gifts, a Lego train set for Kai, watercolor paints for Zara, but always consulted Caitlin first. "I don't want to overstep," he said once at the park, sincerity in his tone. Caitlin, standing a few steps away, observed as he gently pushed Zara on a swing, listening as she told him about her dream of becoming the greatest painter in the world. Kai, more reserved, sat beside Damien on the grass, carefully building a miniature ship out of popsicle sticks. Over time, Damien's awkwardness gave way to ease, and to Caitlin's surprise and secret heartache, the children began to look forward to their meetings. "Uncle Damien's really good at building ships, Mom," Kai once exclaimed, his eyes bright. One afternoon at the Ramsey Exclusive office, as Caitlin reviewed plans to expand tours into South America, Damien showed up unexpectedly. He had scheduled the visit through Dina, who remained a buffer Caitlin trusted. "I need to talk," he said, sitting across from her in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the Charles River. "Not about the kids, about us." Caitlin crossed her arms, wary. "There is no us, Damien. There's only Zara and Kai." But Damien didn't retreat. He took a deep breath, voice low but steady. "I was a coward, Caitlin. 7 years ago, I let my mother and my family's pressure control me. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you." His confession left Caitlin frozen. She wanted to dismiss it, to tell him those words meant nothing after years of struggling alone. But there was something in his eyes, a raw sincerity, an ache that made her hesitate. She rose and walked to the window, staring out at the glittering river, trying to hide the storm behind her composed expression. "You have no idea what I've been through, Damien. I built everything from the ground up for my kids alone. You can't just show up and expect things to go back to how they were." Damien nodded, offering no argument. "I know, but I want to show you I've changed because of Zara, because of Kai, and because of you." Caitlin's strength as both a CEO and a single mother only deepened Damien's admiration. In every encounter, he saw how she balanced managing a global company with nurturing two remarkable children. One day when he arrived to pick up Zara and Kai from their community art class, a teacher mentioned how Caitlin had personally funded the program for underprivileged kids. "She's not just a leader," the teacher said. "She's an inspiration." Damien realized Caitlin was no longer just the woman he had loved. She was a symbol of resilience, someone who had turned pain into power. But inside Caitlin, an internal battle raged. Every time she saw Damien laugh with Zara or patiently teach Kai how to fold a paper airplane, she felt warmth and a whisper of the happiness they once shared. But the fear of being hurt again loomed large. Could she trust him, or would he crumble again if his family disapproved? Late at night, after the children were asleep, Caitlin often sat at her desk, staring at a photo of the three of them taken in the park. She reminded herself that Zara and Kai came first, but deep down she couldn't deny her heart still stirred at Damien's presence. A small moment shifted her perspective. During one park visit, Kai accidentally dropped the Lego ship he and Damien had built. Usually stoic, Kai began to cry. Caitlin rushed over, but Damien was already kneeling beside the boy. "It's okay, Kai," he said gently. "We can rebuild it. The things that matter don't disappear if we try again." He helped Kai pick up each piece and rebuild it, while Zara clapped joyfully when the ship was whole again. In that moment, Caitlin saw more than a man trying to make amends. She saw a father learning how to be present. Slowly, the walls Caitlin had built began to lower. She started sharing small things with Damien, Zara's obsession with drawing ocean scenes, Kai's fascination with logic puzzles. Damien listened, took notes, and even suggested taking the twins to a science exhibit Kai had once mentioned. Caitlin agreed, though she kept her distance, reminding herself this was all for the children, not for her. Still, as Damien and the children grew closer, Caitlin wrestled with the lingering question, could she ever open her heart to him again? One evening, sitting in her office, watching the city shimmer with evening lights, Caitlin reflected on her journey. From an abandoned bride, she had become a powerful CEO and a fierce, loving mother. Now she stood at a new crossroads. Could she allow herself to rediscover love, or would fear keep her heart locked away? She picked up the photo of Zara and Kai again. Their smiles reminded her, sometimes walking together for the children might just be the first step toward healing her own heart. The seaside town of Gloucester, Massachusetts, nestled quietly against the Atlantic Ocean, was the perfect setting for a peaceful weekend escape. Gentle waves lapped against rocky shores, and narrow cobbled paths wound past seafood shacks and white-painted wooden cottages. It was exactly the kind of calm Caitlin Ramsey longed for after weeks of emotional turbulence. She had brought Zara and Kai, now 5.5, to this quiet haven to breathe in the sea air, far from the pressures of Ramsey-exclusive experiences and the complex emotions surrounding Damien Holt. The small rental cottage she chose had a wooden porch that faced the ocean, where she and the children could paint, eat ice cream, and fall asleep to the sound of waves. But as always, fate had its own ideas. The trip began with laughter. Zara, full of imagination, dashed across the sand, collecting seashells for her treasure collection. Kai, more reserved, quietly built intricate sandcastles with impressive focus. Wrapped in an oversized sweater and her hair loosely tied, Caitlin watched them, heart light for the first time in weeks. She had invited Damien to join them on the second day, a decision that filled her with both unease and hope. After months of supervised visits, she had begun to see real effort from him as a father, but she still kept her guard up, unwilling to let emotions cloud her judgment. Damien arrived early in the morning, bringing with him a seagull-shaped kite that made Zara squeal with delight and earned a rare smile from Kai. That afternoon, the four of them walked along the beach, where soft waves kissed the shoreline. Damien patiently taught Zara how to fly the kite, while Kai, holding Caitlin's hand, pointed out the gulls circling above. But the joy was briefly shattered when Zara, running too quickly after the kite, slipped on a slick rock. She fell, scraping her knee, and cried out in pain. Caitlin rushed over, her motherly instinct igniting, scooping Zara into her arms to examine the bleeding cut. Damien knelt beside them, voice steady but tinged with concern. "Zara, sweetheart, are you okay?" Let me take a look," he said, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket to gently wipe away the blood as Caitlin reached for gauze from her bag. In that moment, both of them crouched over their daughter. Caring for her together, Caitlin realized something profound. No matter the pain of their past, they were both here for their children. Beside them, Kai clutched Damien's hand and whispered, "Zara's going to be okay, right?" Damien nodded, gently patting his son's head. "She's fine, Kai. We'll take care of her." Caitlin looked at Damien. His eyes reflected deep commitment not just to Zara, but to this little family. And for the first time in a long while, something warm cracked through the wall she'd built. That evening, after Zara was bandaged and cheered up with an ice cream cone, the four of them sat on the porch watching the sun dip into the ocean, painting the waves gold. Exhausted from a day of play, Zara and Kai dozed off on the porch bench, curled into each other. Caitlin and Damien sat across from one another, the air filled only with the sound of the sea and their children's soft breathing. Damien broke the silence, his voice low and sincere. "Caitlin, I know I can't erase the past, but these past few months with Zara, Kai, and being near you, I've realized something. I want to spend the rest of my life making it right. Not just for the kids, but because I still love you. I always have." Caitlin's heartbeat quickened. She wanted to deny it, to remind him that love couldn't be rebuilt on broken promises. But the look in his eyes, full of truth and remorse, stopped her. Damien reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder, placing it in front of her. "This isn't a ring," he said with a slight, nervous smile. "It's a partnership proposal. I want to come on as Chief Operating Officer of Ramsey Exclusive Experiences, work under you, with you as Chief Executive Officer. I want us to build something together, not just the company, a future. I promise Zara and Kai will always come first in every decision I make." Caitlin opened the folder and skimmed the pages. It was a detailed proposal, Damien offering to help expand the company into new markets, leveraging his port and investment connections. But what caught her attention was a handwritten note on the last page. "I want to walk beside you, Caitlin, not just in business, but in life, if you'll let me." She looked up, torn between lingering distrust and a flicker of fragile hope. "Damien, I don't know if I can trust you. I've already lost too much once." He nodded, not pushing. "I understand, but I'll spend the rest of my life proving you can. Not just for our kids, but because I want us to be a family." He glanced at Zara and Kai, asleep side by side. "I've already missed 7 years. I don't want to miss another day." Caitlin stared out at the ocean, the moonlight beginning to shimmer across the waves. She thought about her journey from a bride abandoned at the altar to a fierce mother and accomplished CEO. She had learned that love wasn't just romance, it was commitment, showing up and staying through the hardest days. She thought of Zara and Kai, of how they lit up around Damien, and how he had slowly become part of their world. She wouldn't forgive out of weakness, but because she was strong enough to choose what was best for her children, and maybe for herself. "All right, Damien," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "We can try again, but only on one condition. Zara and Kai come first. Always. If you break that promise, there won't be another chance." Damien smiled a smile filled with relief, humility, and determination. "I promise, Caitlin, I won't let you down." As they returned to the cottage, Caitlin felt something unexpected. Peace. She didn't know exactly where this path would lead, but she knew one thing for sure: they were walking it together now. Not just for love, but for a deeper reason, a shared commitment to their children and to a future they would build as a family. She sat beside Zara and Kai, gently brushing their hair back from their foreheads, and as the steady rhythm of Gloucester's waves whispered against the shore, Caitlin understood something simple and powerful. Sometimes love isn't a feeling, it's a choice to walk side by side, to rebuild, and to believe again. Caitlin Ramsey's new home lay nestled in the peaceful suburbs of Boston, where towering oak trees shaded quiet streets and charming gardens bloomed behind white brick walls. The house itself wasn't grand or extravagant, but it radiated warmth. With its big windows, sun-filled kitchen, and a backyard strung with fairy lights, it felt like a place where memories were meant to be made. A wooden swing handcrafted by Damien hung from a tree, and hydrangeas lined the garden where Zara and Kai now played freely. After years of healing, heartache, and hope, this house had become more than a residence. It was the beginning of something real, a future built not just by Caitlin alone, but by all four of them together. 5 years after its founding, Ramsey Exclusive Experiences had grown beyond expectation. Now rebranded as Ramsey Global Experiences, the company had expanded into more than 10 countries and established itself as a leader in luxury experiential travel. The 5-year anniversary gala was held at a dazzling hotel in downtown Boston. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above elegantly set tables, each centerpiece inspired by one of the company's most successful destinations: saffron flowers from Morocco, cherry blossoms from Kyoto, hand-woven linen from Santorini. Yet for Caitlin, now 34, the celebration wasn't only about the business. It was about the personal journey behind it. The woman who once stood alone in a wedding dress on a luxury cruise had become a global CEO, a devoted mother, and now a life partner to the man she once thought she'd never forgive. Dressed in a silver silk gown, Caitlin took the stage to address the guests. The spotlight caught the soft shimmer in her eyes, not from nerves, but from deep emotion. "We don't just create travel experiences," she said, voice steady and resonant. "We create stories, connections, moments that change lives. And tonight, I stand here not only as the founder of Ramsey Global, but as a mother, a leader, and someone who knows the power of second chances." Thunderous applause erupted. Yet Caitlin's eyes sought only 3 faces in the front row: Zara and Kai, grinning up at her in their formal outfits, and Damien beside them, pride in every line of his face. Then it was Damien's turn. In a midnight blue suit, he stepped onto the stage, not as a businessman, but as a man who had spent the last year earning back trust and love. He had become the company's COO, helping expand into Africa and Asia and launching community-based ecotourism initiatives. But tonight, he spoke not of profits or milestones. "I once lost everything that truly mattered," Damien began, his voice quiet but raw. "I missed the first 7 years of my children's lives because I was afraid. But by some miracle, I was given another chance, not just in business, but in love." His eyes met Caitlin's. Not in a mistaken room on the infinity, but in the hearts of Caitlin, Zara, and Kai. "That's where I found what I never knew I was searching for." There was a stillness in the room, then a rising wave of applause. But all Caitlin could see was the man standing before her, not the Damien of 7 years ago, but someone changed, real and worthy. Their gazes locked in a silent conversation, and her lips curved into a smile that said everything. That night they celebrated not in champagne showers or press interviews, but in their own backyard with only Dina, their children, and each other. Lanterns glowed from the trees, casting a golden hue over the garden. Caitlin roasted marshmallows with Zara curled on her lap, while Kai leaned into Damien, proudly holding up his slightly burnt skewer. The air was filled with gentle laughter, flickering light, and something more rare than success belonging. And then, the moment that melted every scar. Zara looked up at Damien, her cheeks sticky with chocolate. "Daddy, can you help me draw a ship?" The word daddy landed like a soft thunderclap. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rehearsed. It simply was. Kai looked at his sister, then turned to Damien with wide, curious eyes. "Daddy, can we build Legos tomorrow?" Damien didn't speak right away. His throat tightened, but he nodded, smile trembling. "Anytime you want, Kai. I'm here. Always." Caitlin's hand reached for his instinctively. He looked at her, eyes misted with gratitude and awe. She didn't say anything she didn't have to. Her tears said it all. In that one moment, their fractured story became whole. From business partners to co-parents to something much deeper, Caitlin and Damien had built a life not just for themselves, but for the 2 children who were always at the center of their world. Ramsey Global continued to grow. Offices opened in Sydney and Dubai. New immersive tours launched across Mexico and India. But to Caitlin, none of that compared to her true success. Her greatest joy wasn't in earnings reports or industry acclaim. It was in quiet mornings at home. It was in Zara and Kai's laughter echoing through the garden. It was in the warmth of Damien's arms when the world fell silent. It was in knowing that healing didn't mean forgetting the pain, but choosing to love through it anyway. As the fire pit flickered low and the children played beneath the moonlight, Caitlin leaned her head on Damien's shoulder, her fingers interlaced with his, grounding her in this present she had once thought impossible. She thought of the path that brought her here, of the wrong room, the right children, the impossible choices, and the quiet strength it took to choose forgiveness. And then she smiled, because she knew this truth. Sometimes the wrong room leads you exactly where you belong. A family, a home, and a love that had taken the long way but arrived just in time.